There are actually two sides to how Musk used Twitter, now X, that are relevant right now. One is the obvious total failure from a business perspective. He's supposed to be a business guy. He got a lot of money from banks on the principle and the expectations he would be good at business, but he lost a ton of money.
X is worth 71.5% less than it was at the time that Elon Musk bought it.
The social media platform is still seeing a negative cash flow because of a 50% drop in ad revenue.
Numbers don't lie. That crash was the brutal economic reality. So Musk lost the company a lot of money. Ultimately, there are debts to pay even when you're that rich. So his partners, his business loans, whatever collateral he puts up on that, he is way down. But in terms of raw attention, it was a different story. Musk used X to make himself far more interesting and relevant and controversial. He won the attention war in 2024, as Axios put it. And the site under his management, while it lost all that money, remember, which all of his banker investors are mad about, also got 30 times the daily traffic than many rivals. Now, our colleague Chris Hayes has his eye on exactly this battle to control attention. And if you've noticed it from the tech inaugural to the way tech has been a central feature of our politics, Hayes argues it's the defining battle right now. Younger people, sometimes called Gen Z, are all over social media. Many stay up late just to check their feeds. And it goes beyond just your friends or youthful things. This type of internet, always online, always something new, and digital attention merchants using a business model to make young people and everyone else continue to feel that way. This is affecting not only how we live and how people are raised and how we communicate with each other. It's become a kind of a baseline of our life and politics. It's not a coincidence that this election cycle, if you noticed, had a heck of a lot more tech during the campaign and all the way up to the inauguration and all those tech billionaires. And this sort of constant internet life is something that not only Hayes diagnoses in this smart new book, I finished it, but it's also something comic Bo Burnham explored in a streaming Netflix special, Inside.
Welcome to the internet. What would you prefer? Would you like to fight for civil rights or tweet a racial slur? Be happy, be bursting with rage. We got a million different ways to engage. Could I interest you in everything all of the time? A little bit of everything all of the time.
Who are you going to call Chris Hayes? MSNBC host of All In with the new best-selling book, The Siren's Call, How Attention Became the World's Most Endangered Resource. It debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, which is a big deal. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I can say I finished the whole book.
You read it.
You know that.
You were one of the first readers. I got you a galley and you read it right away.
So as they say, I have questions, you know that term, but before them, tell us what's important about your book right now for viewers.
Well, I think people right now, over the last few weeks, have been struggling with how to stay focused and how to deal with the onslaught of pulls on their attention from the news. And we've ended up in a scenario where the kind of private life experience of these constant siren calls, these constant compelled forms of attention on us with the buzz of the phone and the incoming, is now being mirrored in public discourse between Trump and Musk, who are doing the exact same thing at the macro level. And in the case of Musk, with the platform that he bought, it's like the Venn diagram of both of them. And the whole book is about the fact that attention is the defining resource of our time, that it's finite, that it's powerful, and that there is an incredibly sophisticated world of attention capitalism built to extract it from us, often essentially against our will.
So briefly, and then I want to play something. Does attention capitalism's success, which we see in what the most valuable companies are in the world, it's inarguable, require politics to be this way? Because that operates in many countries.
Well, I think we've seen much of what's happening in our country mirrored in other places. I mean, the kind of discourse that attention capitalism platforms select for is a discourse that is maximally attentionally salient and has no other value it's pursuing other than that.
Right.
The platform only exists for one purpose: to maximize the number and hours of eyeballs on the site so as to monetize it with selling ads against it.
Right. And
There is nothing else it's trying to do that you and I are trying to do, or that, you know, people who are making a movie are trying to do, right? Tell a story, get a message out, inform people. The pureness of that distillation of it selects for lots of stuff, lies, conspiracy theories that can be really, really toxic in aggregate.
Yeah, and your book does a very precise job with the political context that I think people will find interesting of showing how that is baked in.
Yeah.
So if that's completely baked into most of those tools, there's no way to protest it within those tools, right? It's like a Black Mirror episode. I want to show how this evolved over time.
Yeah.
You write in the book about how politicians used to speak, how some things in the world have gotten better and others have gotten worse. And so in that spirit, we are about to show a lengthier history lesson that fits with your book that we think is interesting, but starts with, the first part is the slowest, how politicians used to speak to the country on a national basis, and then out from there. Let's take a look.
All right.
We discussed tonight domestic issues, but I would not want that to be any implication to be given that this does not involve directly our struggle with Mr. Khrushchev for survival. Mr. Khrushchev is in New York, and he maintains the communist offensive throughout the world because of the productive power of the Soviet Union itself.
The things that Senator Kennedy has said, many of us can agree with. There is no question but that we cannot discuss our internal affairs in the United States without recognizing that they have a tremendous bearing on our international position. There is no question but that this nation cannot stand still.
Taxes have been cut, and yet income is up to the federal government by 25% in the last 3 years. And so what I want to do is keep this expansion going.
You mentioned the Navy, for example, and that we have fewer ships than we did in 1916. Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets because the nature of our military has changed.
You defrauded the challenged on a point. Little Marco. He's defrauded.
You can't be for the mob on January 6th and for the officers. You can't. And it's not funny. When that mob came, Senator Cruz was hiding in a supply closet.
So one of the things I think you see there, and I write in the book about the Lincoln-Douglas debates, a debate is what I call in the book an attentional regime. And this is really an important concept because all human endeavors, this interview we're having right now, your first day in preschool, the floor of the United States Senate, a business meeting with an agenda, have some attentional regime to guide the flow of attention.
Right.
A debate is an attentional regime created for the purpose of civic public life. And one of the things we've seen down is a total breakdown of these debates. I mean, when you get to the cross-shouting of Donald Trump and Lil Marco, or when you think about Donald Trump doing a debate, he doesn't actually debate. Like, compare Nixon and Kennedy to the way that Trump conducts himself. He basically yells over everyone. He interrupts. He avoids the topic. That is endemic now to our politics, this breakdown of attentional regimes, which then means that the most important thing is just to get attention and put attention on what you want as opposed to genuinely engage with the other person.
Here's something I couldn't tell from reading your book, but I get to ask you. You know, sometimes you finish the book and you have a question, but you don't have the author. Does this problem happen basically this way without phones? Meaning you have laptops, we have a shortening of political discourse we just saw, even pre-phone. Does it happen without the computer going in your pocket and your kids' pockets?
Oh, man, that's a great question. I think the platforms are a little more important than the phones. Like the scale of the platform, the fact that it's so hyper-individuated, the fact that it has an algorithmic machine learning model being run over billions of users that's only selecting to maximize attention is the issue more than it's in your phone. But the phone, of course, is what gives it the ubiquity that means people spend 5 to 6 hours a day on it. You know, so, and that is increasingly one of the things that happen is whatever dividing line there used to be between journalism as content and other stuff,
forget it.
Completely gone.
Well, and
right? Like, we are doing something, we're trying to keep people looking, like we need to get people's attention, but we really are trying to do a different thing.
Yes, and you're
than what the algorithm is.
And in your conclusion of the book, you wrestle with this idea that in the old days, raising awareness and attention was something that was seen as a positive, like attention on this issue, this famine abroad.
Famine in Ethiopia, right? We are the world.
But implied in that was a certain quality of attention.
Yes.
Not just saying, oh, something funny or outrageous happened, let me look at it for those 8 seconds and then leave the fam.
Yes.
Right? We have one lyric for your book, okay?
Oh, good. I was hoping we were.
Jadakiss, right?
Obviously.
In the famous song Why, which asks all these questions, at one point he says, y'all let the Terminator win the election. Come on, pay attention.
That's very good.
And I think he means
yes.
That outcome is silly. You let an actor, man, imagine if he got to Trump, but this
Right.
was a pre-Trump song.
That's
you let an
amazing.
actor take over the California governor's race, etc. And so he's saying, like you would say, pay better attention.
And pay attention to, Walter Lippmann has this line in The Phantom Public, he writes in the 1920s, he's covering the Treaty of Versailles. And he knows that Americans are not paying that much attention to it. And he says the American public have a great interest in what happens in Versailles, but they're not interested in it.
Love that.
Bars from Lippmann.
Bars.
And that point that's replicable. That was true back then. But this gap between what's interesting and what we have an interest in, between what grabs our attention and what we should be paying attention to.
Yeah.
The thing that you and I work very hard every day to kind of bring those close together, that in the gap is where I think democracy's in a lot of trouble right now.